Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the European crossover webinar. And we're seeing a, a nice little rebound here from the euro. I think we've also seen that come across with the cable. We'll take a look. Moment. And oh, by the way, happy election day. It's finally got here. We're seeing a good rebound here with the cable, too. We'll take a look here also at the dollar CAD. Interest. Oh, the dollar CAD's lower. So I had Aussie dollar on my mind. I'm like, whoa, that's a bit of an interesting move. But dollar CAD is correspondingly lower, and let's see how the Aussie's doing. Good move here in the Aussie, adding on to yesterday's turnaround. So we are seeing equities also move a bit higher here. We can take a quick poke there. And Irina said, good morning. And any comments on Amazon? We'll go in and take a look at that. You can see Amazon. Actually, I'd noticed that right when I was getting ready to come in or clock in, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, boy, we have really had a pretty good sell-off. And right into this support, you can see on the daily level, 29.81. And then at that point, I kind of looked across the board to see where everything was in relation. You can kind of see Microsoft's kind of in relation to the same thing. But you can see how Apple's kind of held up a bit better. Although Apple did announce an event coming up. They'll have the new MacBooks with the new Apple chips on them. But you can see here, it's definitely weaker. Although I think this is some key support here in this 29.81 area. But we'll go and take a quick look at the indices. You can see them kind of turning around here. I mentioned in the chat room, this is the kind of move I thought we might have got yesterday. And that's why I was, yesterday I was saying be a bit cautious. I was looking for the NASDAQ. Remember, I was looking for 11,230. We actually made it up to, I think initially it was 11,211 and then dipped back. And then we rallied back up here. And I think we went to exactly the same thing, 211, before we did go in and sell off. And I was thinking, I wouldn't mind a short, but I said I need to have my number. I wanted to see that 230, and then I was looking. But they really did dip, and I think the market was just getting a little bit spooked. But my concern is I would be careful jumping in front of anything today. Overall, the polls are pointing towards a solid Biden victory. It's not saying that some states aren't tied, and part of the angst is certain key states like Pennsylvania, they're not even counting their early mail-in votes until tomorrow. So there's that angst that the market had, and then Trump was feeling it. Unlike that, and I mentioned here is Texas, we set a record for early voting that exceeded all of 2016 in total. And that early voting, it's not mail voting, it's actually early voting at the polls. We had it because the whole COVID thing, they'd actually extended the early voting by an additional week. So it's actually lasted like 2.5 weeks or something. But those totals have even exceeded, and we'll actually have the numbers tonight. There won't be no waiting to count to the next day, the day afterwards. We'll actually have the numbers tonight. And right now, Texas is now in a toss-up. And there's a pretty good chance that it can turn blue. If Texas turns blue, the significance is, well, not only would it be the first time it voted a Democratic in 44 years, but if Texas turns blue, it's over, done with, stick a knife in it, it's done. Trump will have no realistic pathway to 270. So all this consternation and angst over, the amount of timing and a roll into the next day and the day after that would be completely over. If he wins Texas, if he loses Texas, that's it. There's no realistic path to 270. I mean, you can look at crazy things like, well, what if he won California? Not that that's going to happen. I'm just saying, but all things being equal, he has no chance to 270. So we could start to see the market start to move in this direction. I don't think it's going to go bananas, but I wouldn't step in front of this and saying, oh, this is a good level, let me go and short it. I would rather see this thing put much higher before. And even then, I think that the momentum starting to swing that way. So I would be wary of jumping into in front of anything right now. And you're seeing the dollar, sell off. And we know that if there is a Biden blue wave, that the dollar will go and sell off because it opens the door for a much bigger stimulus, and we would get a stimulus. With that being said, let's go on and we can take a look at the economic data. Hard to believe it. We're finally here, November the 3rd. So we do have Johnson Red Book. We have ISM New York Index at 9:45 Eastern. Durable goods and factory orders at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm in Central Time, so that's why it's gonna. Eastern is 1 hour before, if you want to call it that. So for me, it's 9 a.m. Eastern. It's gonna be 10. So most people feel more comfortable identifying with Eastern. So that's why I list it that way. So once again, ISM at 9:45 Eastern. Durable goods and factory orders at 10 a.m. Eastern. And that'll be it. And of course, the big thing is the election. Oh, and by the way, I will be up the entire night. Um, so I'll be here throughout the entire U.S. election in the chat room. I know Blake said he's going to be in there for a decent portion, but I'll be in there the entire night. All things being equal, into the European Open. I'm saying is if things get, like I said, what if Texas were to jump in, it settled it basically, then you'd have a big move and another move, and then there might be a little bit of a gap. I mean, where the market would kind of take a pause, and maybe I'd catch an hour's worth of sleep before that gap or something. But all things, I mean, unless something like that happens, it could very well happen. I'll be up through the entire session, all the way into the European session. We'll go and take a look at the news stories. The dollar, Australian dollar dips and bond yields at record lows on the RBA easing. The Australian dollar eased and bond yields hit record lows on Tuesday after the country's central bank cut interest rates and pledged to buy longer-term debt with the aim of lowering borrowing costs across a struggling economy. The Aussie dipped to 70.40, 15-week low of 69.90. New Zealand dollar was up from a 2-week low. Yields on Australian bonds out to 5 years reached historic lows after the RBA cut both the cash and target rate of 3 years to 15 basis points. I think they were expecting potentially down to 10 basis points. The central bank also extended bond purchases out to 5 to 10 year tenors, saying it planned to buy 100 billion Aussie dollars of state debt over the next 6 months. And the RBA slightly upgraded its outlook for the economic growth, citing Australia's progress in containing the coronavirus. Yet the board still drove the dovish message by stating it was prepared to do more on policy if necessary. The RBA didn't disappoint when it cut interest rates and launched quantitative easing policy, said Marcel Delon. This would be fairly, he noted the RBA would likely end up holding around 16% of the federal and state bonds after this round of purchases. This would still be fairly low by international standards, said Delan. So even though the RBA today became more optimistic about the outlook for the economy, we think there's a good chance the QE will be extended further next year. Okay. On to the dollar. Caution prevails for the dollar heading into the U.S. election. Caution prevailed on the foreign exchange rates on Tuesday in the hours ahead of the polls opening the U.S. as investors brace for possible post-election disputes that could trigger a burst of volatility for the dollar. Markets are singularly focused on the election results, but rather than outright bets on a particular outcome, many traders have flocked to the safety of the dollars so that they are well positioned to take advantage of volatility results when they arrive. Those who haven't hedged yet, but who feel the pain in case of a strong move, should hedge themselves as soon as possible, as it's getting increasingly expensive, Commerce Bank strategist said. There's one thing we can do. Fasten seatbelts, put the helmets on, and wait what happens. The euro dollar over the coming days, added to even riots in the U.S., cannot be excluded, which may cause the market to sell the dollar. Now, and I know for some in Europe, and it is kind of crazy here to see, like you could, a lot of businesses boarding up. Look, the thing is that people don't want to feel cheated out of their votes. And like I said, I'm just telling it to you like it is, ain't about politics. With Trump saying, he said stuff like, I'll give you an example. The Pennsylvania, their mail-in votes are not allowed to be counted until the day after election. Okay, the next day. So he says at midnight, all the voting should be stopped at that. I mean, not this voting stuff. He said the election should be called. Once we hit midnight, that's it. How can you do that if the votes aren't counted until the next day for those that did mail-in balloting? And that's what I'm saying. It's so key in Texas, because in Texas, all this stuff, we'll have the answer tonight. So once again, if Texas were to go blue, that's it. Over, done with, finito, game over. But that's where you've seen this, is people don't want to feel like they've been cheated out of their vote. And he's alluded to a lot of, there's going to be fraud, there's going to be this, and it's really pissing a lot of people off. That's why you've seen this, and you're seeing that. It's not because, once again, a lot of other issues, but that's the main key thing. Where people are going to feel what they call is being disenfranchised, not counting the votes or not allowing, and that's essentially what he's done. Where, like I said, there's states where they've tried to move it before, where they could do the counting of the early mail votes before then. But the Republican state legislature voted against that. So they're stuck. They can't count them until the day after. And there's other states that, once again, because of the COVID situation, a lot of states have done mail-in balloting that are not used to doing it. And so it's going to take them a while. Now, Florida does it, but they've done it for so long, so they can go through their results pretty close. But that's going to be a very close decision there in that state. So anyway, that saying, analysts with a Biden win could weaken the dollar as he's expected to spend big on stimulus, I just told you, and to take a free approach to trade, boosting other currencies at the dollar's expense. But with the battleground states too close to call, with the prospect of either a Trump victory or an inconclusive result, likely to support the dollar, selling was limited. But like I told you, Texas is truly now a toss-up. And the momentum is going the way of the Democrats. If there's enough there, we could, if once again, we'll have that decision probably around 11 o'clock at the latest. I would think 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. We should have that amount, or maybe just a half hour beyond that. And at that point, we'll have the decision. And once again, if it goes against Trump, that's it. Finito, done deal. Election's basically over at that point, all things being equal. It's a bit reckless to position ourselves for one outcome of the election. We position ourselves to trade the post-election volatility, said Stuart Oakley. Beneath the steady output, volatility gauges are soaring, and an indication that things could get bumpy as the election results arrive in the Asian session on Wednesday. President Trump is trailing domestic rival Joseph Biden, and national opinion polls has made attacks on mail-in ballots, suggesting he would deploy lawyers, and states are still counting the votes after Election Day on Tuesday. It's not unusual in the U.S. that states take several days or weeks to count the votes. If the record surge of mail-in ballots as a result of the coronavirus pandemic could draw out the process further this year. And bets against the dollar are expected to linger as an even increase in the immediate aftermath of the presidential election. After trading within the ranges of much of October, the 4-week high on Friday of fears on the election results being contested in the courts. Well, we've already talked about that. And, like I said, we've already gone over why there are going to be swings potentially this way or that way. But like I said, if I'm just saying that's one. There's many scenarios you'll look at, and I shared that video where it's kind of show how all the states go from one closing poll to another. I mean, when closing, closing time of the polls, not an actual poll like the polls that you take, but I'm saying the closing poll, the actual election poll. We place the votes when that closes from one time zone to another time from each state. Well, that'll give you an idea, but I'm just saying there's one scenario will be, like I said, a very key scenario now that it's a toss-up. If Texas were to go that way, that's it. Game over. Night's over. you just basically get long equities and ride that sucker. So we'll get rid of this one here, and we'll just move into the analysis. And once again, Irene had asked about Amazon. The only thing I'm going to say here, because like I said, I think a lot of the market, we're in a very key area. So we got to look at it in relation to where we are. I think, like I said, right now, despite everything you've heard, the Democrats are in better control. If you've seen the shows, it's not like Trump doesn't have a path to victory, but his path to victory is so tight, it's not funny. Whereas Biden has a lot of options where if this state doesn't work out, okay, he can go with this way, that way. I think we could actually see a pretty good rebound, okay, in markets. And so if you look at it, are we at a key level? Yeah, 2981. So to me, it's all about this 2981 here. I really don't think we're going to move into an area where it's all contested and all this other stuff. I mean, the voting can go much longer, and we may not get a decision towards later. But that being said, one key driver is going to be the Texas vote that no one expected at all, and now is in play. And now the momentum's in the way of the Democrats. So we could actually see this thing actually come to a head and a decision for the lack of it during the U.S. elections. And that's what I'm saying is I know that Amanda, she posted out here, watch out your dollar. I'm just telling you folks, don't stand in the way of a lot of these moves. I would not, because I'm saying is I think we got past the angst yesterday, the angst that the concern that people are having, we can start to just move higher. And I'm not saying it's going to go bananas, but we can go on and move higher at this point, and you don't want to be in the way. We'll go on moving to the euro dollar right now. And you can see we're making a move right now at 1690. The real resistance at this point, for today, that's not our bias chart. We'll have to update our bias chart. Would be here at 1717. That'd be it right there. Actually, be a little, well, you can say right there at the body, but it's this touch here, and that confluences. So I could move it. Let's see with 1710. I guess we could stay with the 1716. Go with that, but wasn't our bias chart. But I'm saying be careful. I would not be getting in the way of this stuff because I think you might hit some stops where people are short, thinking, "Oh, we're going to see the dollar take off," and if they're short right now, we could easily bust some stops. And so the bias charts I put, they're just basically like daily bias charts. I'm going to let the market do whatever it wants to do. So the euro paired back on Monday to bias chart support 1624, which it did hold the 1624. Hang on, let's go on and update it to the daily. There we go. Support for Tuesday will be 1578 with resistance at 1687. Well, we're there right now at 1687 right now. But I think you have to be a little bit realistic in case we do push a little bit higher. This is our bias chart resistance. Let me bear with me. I really didn't want to do an election one where we look for the extremes because I don't think anyone would know what the extremes were. But we had 1687. Well, I'll just stick to what we had. But watch out if we do get going. It could make it up to 1717. We'll stick to what we had, and which is going to be 1578 and 1687. Let's move into the cable. And the reason I didn't want to do that, unlike, let's say, an employment report, we'll say, oh, if it gets to this level, I don't think there's anything very clear, definitive. And let me switch this out because the other one's loaded up as a daily, and I'll be having to do the daily chart. Let me go back to put this to Amazon. Okay, obviously the cable make a turnaround here. So the cable dipped, challenging 28.78 before closing above 2900. Support on Tuesday will be 28.38 with resistance at 29.90. And we'll just stick to this. Oh, and I did keep the 29.90. Okay, good. Next one, the Aussie dollar. We did have the RBA, which gave it a little extra juice. Also, you saw a turnaround on Monday for nearly after nearly tagging buys chart support. Support on Tuesday will be 69.80 with resistance at 70.95. Well, you can see we've poked our heads above it, but like I told you, I'm just going to stick to what I had before because 70.95. Okay, because as I said before, unlike a whatchamacallit, like let's say an employment report, U.S. employment report, I can say, oh, if it makes it up to here, look, we could get really overdone. Like let's say if Biden wins and we get a blue wave, we can end up ripping this thing up to right around in here, close to 72 cents. You see what I'm saying? So and so I'm just going to stick with what we have for a regular bias chart. So let's go to the Kiwi. Kiwi posted a turnaround on Monday, defending the 6601 level. Resistance for Tuesday will be 6670 with support at 6575. Put 6670. Onto the dollar CAD. Boy, this thing really turned around. Dollar CAD closed. Doggone it. I don't know why it didn't update. Doggone it. So the dollar CAD, I see a pretty good pullback. This is going to be support right there. You see right there? Which means 31.44. And resistance would have been right there. 35, 32.25. Move on to the dollar peso. Boy, we took a pretty good little dip here in the peso. And that's beyond our whatchamacall. Because look, dollar peso once again challenged at 21.48, falling short of bias chart resistance 21.54. Resistance for Tuesday will remain the same with support at 21.16. So, but you can see right here, this has been a key level right there. We'll go with that 21.07 because that's not a stretch there. So keep the 21.07. On the upside, I did have that 21.54, so I'm going to leave that there. Although it doesn't look like we're going to go anywhere near that. And move into the dollar yen. Dollar yen extended its upward push on Monday, albeit in a tight range. Resistance for Tuesday will be 518 with support at 434. onto the dollar index. So the dollar index moved higher on Monday, but did not take out our bias chart resistance of 94.37. Resistance on Tuesday will be 94.59 with support at 93.42. Let's move into the Kiwi yen. Nice little smart turnaround here in the Kiwi yen. Resistance can be right there at these bodies. 70 cents even. With support right there, that body. Which is actually where that was a low for the day. 69.33. On to the euro pound. Oh, we're dead quiet here. So no changes in the euro pound. It's going to be 89.73 and 90.56. No changes. Let's go move into the euro odd. Oh, you can see, boy, another dip here. So obviously, as the Aussie is strengthened, 64.10 is going to be bias chart support. With resistance right there, that body, 65.21. Onto the Euro Kiwi. Right there, this body's going to be support, 74.97. And I'm just wheeling off these levels right now because, like I said, the real fireworks are going to be later. But we're trading relatively quiet session. The high is going to be this body close right there, which is 76.03. Onto the Aussie yen. Pretty good rebound here in the Aussie yen. Resistance is going to be this body right there, which is going to be 74.70. And support right there. This body, we actually make it a little bit lower right here, right there at that body, that wick. That wick low is 73.96. And onto the guppy. Decent rebound here in the guppy. Keeping it simple. You can see 35.89. We did have 35.97, so I was going to stick with that 35.97. Let them overshoot a little bit. And the low, we'll go with this 35.26 right there. You can see that. And lastly, with the sterling odd, good dip here. I will just go with this wick for the low for support. 82.14. And the upside, this lower wick here. 83.48. And if you look at indices, look at that. They're holding their bids right here. And that's what I'm saying is be a bit wary. I'm not saying we're going to take off to the moon or anything like that, but we can easily push up in here and push a little bit higher. So I would just be a bit cautious. We may see a little bit of a flat, not flattening, but to flatten out if people got a little bit over anxious on the downside. So once again, I think that it is going to be a Biden victory. So I just be careful. We do have still the angst and concern that we have from the market, disputed election, and all that, but everything really points to a Biden victory. The path for 270 for Trump is very, very difficult. Not to say it couldn't be done, but very difficult. And I think the market I'll start to go and price that in as we get through the session. So with that, I'll go on and get the bias chart posted. And thanks for joining us here for the European crossover webinar.